let's give this a go. So, just to introduce myself, my name is Luke Stoiber. I'm a 26-year-old, art dude, art fella. I've been interested in drawing and painting since I can remember, really. Some of my early memories drawing were coloring books and giving it to people, and I'm really just trying to get back to that at the core of it all. I went to school studying design, spent a lot of time doing like freelance work, a lot of startup projects and clothing brands for people. And as of recent, I found myself in the embroidery industry, which I actually really like. It's a lot of what we call digitizing, where you take a logo or a picture and it's pretty much tracing it, mapping it out. There's auto digitizing features which will do a lot of the heavy lifting if it's not like completely from scratch. So yeah, a lot of design work in that sense. From there, I'll take the design and throw it in the computer, on the machine, and it'll sew it out for me. So I do hats, I do Letterman jackets, shirts, polos, pants, anything you really think of. So that's where I've been. That's where I spend most of my time, really. I loved drawing and painting in college. I think one of my favorite classes was oil painting. Just spending all that time in a studio, just really getting into it, zoning out completely. So yeah, I guess this is my first video I'm making here. I've never done a voiceover like this, but I found myself a nice mic, got some real nice tools these days, and just giving her a good go. So to set some intentions out there, my main goal with this channel and with any of my uploads is really just to give you a nice place to relax, somewhere where you can rest your eyes and listen to my soothing or not so soothing voice. It's up to you. So, in complete honesty, I've taken a bit of a hiatus from drawing, from painting, from anything creative beyond what I do now, embroidery, and just wanted to live life. I just needed it. I was really absorbed in trying to make drawing and freelance just my complete 9-to-5, my breadwinner. And it wasn't working for me. It really wasn't. It was too much pressure on what I had actually set out to do, which was to draw and paint. I really enjoy doodling, man. So I'm hoping that you guys enjoy this too. But just kind of want to establish that. I'd come to a blank page many a times, trying to create something that people would like, really, and that wasn't doing it for me. As much as I like to make stuff for people and to make it exactly how they want it, that wasn't honestly why I came to art in the first place. And I'm hoping this makes sense. This is going to be a ramble. There's no script here. But it just wasn't coming from a genuine place. Trying to collect my thoughts here. It was just exhausting. It really was exhausting to come to a blank page and try and come up with something I thought people were going to like, versus mindlessly drawing whatever came to mind. So if we're looking at this piece here, it's really just a sketch of a fox, a wolf, whatever you want to call it, a canine. And I guess you can call it a bit of a study. I wouldn't claim this exact pose and, layout as my own. I was really inspired by something I saw online and kind of wanted to do my own little spin on it. I'd like to study a bit more like canine anatomy. I've always just been drawn to the overall form of the critter, to be quite honest. I think some of my favorite animals are cats, dogs especially. Wolves just have those pointy ears, or some of those pointy ears are just so darn cute. I really like sea life. Sea life is really interesting. But I tend to be drawn towards four-legged critters. I always grew up with dogs and cats. I don't have any pets at the moment. We're in an apartment. I had an opportunity living with some friends where I could have gotten into, owning pets, but it just didn't seem right being in a rental. I'm really looking forward to, in the not so distant future, getting a home, being able to have a yard, maybe get some pets then. But for now, I just really admire them. And this is just kind of the intention I brought to this piece here. I really like the idea of, like, how do I put this? Showing the spirit of what I'm drawing outside of the main, like, subject. So in this case, I thought it'd be cool to sort of knocking that over there sort of shield any emotion from the main subject here by kind of shrouding the eyes and, like, what I would guess I'd consider like a drip or like a shadow. I tend to use lots of vertical lines to show shadows, to show like a descent or an ascending movement, so to really take away from any emotion that the subject has and to externalize it into, some of the elements around it. So in this case, I wanted to show you that, and it's not that deep, it's really not, but just kind of like I'm looking at this as I'm recording this. The canine here has like a third eye in a sense. It's not like the actual eyes are shrouded, right? Like I was saying. But this third eye is like almost being projected outside of itself. There's like a halo around it. There's this orb floating above its head. It's almost like, I guess you could say it's spirit in a sense. I mean, it depends on what you believe. With this channel too, I don't plan on getting super politicized or religious. I mean, to lay it all out there, I wouldn't consider myself super religious. I grew up Christian. I do really appreciate a lot of the values it has, but I guess you can say agnostic, a little bit, there's a term for it, but I see there's a level of consciousness and information to everything. I'm a universe kind of guy. So I try and show that in my art. I feel like a lot of artists are kind of reaching for that, whether they acknowledge it or not. You're stuck with a blank page. It's staring back at you. And what are you going to project onto it? What's going on in that noggin? What are you putting out there? What do you want people to see? Let's be real. What do you want them to see? What do you want to see? It's a bit of a mirror. So, if I'm looking at this piece, or since I'm just rambling, I'll look back at some other ones here. You can hear me flipping the sketchbook. Don't mind that. Lots of clouds. I'm always doing clouds. There's something about the clouds that just sort of drift in and drift out and pull you in or take you away. Always lots of waves. With this piece, I'm attempting at some fur, which not super skilled in the fur department here. Can't say I draw too many like somewhat detailed renderings. I don't tend to focus on a ton of shading. I really like just line work. I think that's why I like logos so much. It's less so how well rendered can this be? How realistic can you make it look? It's more of, what do you see? How do you want to interpret what you're imagining? So you'll notice hopefully moving forward, make this a bit of a habit doing these videos. A lot of my stuff has like a cartoonish sort of feel to it. I don't care too much for realism. Sometimes I go for it. Other times I say, heck with it. Yeah, kind of looking back at some older stuff. Like maybe I'll do a video where I show some of this sometime. But I'm looking at a face with like these bands, and it's kind of like how the tail has a wave to it. It's like these flowy bands wrapped around his face, and he just looks so cozy. I do lots of stars. I really like the sun, the moon, the planets. I love space. But I do these like stars. They're kind of like little like hatches. There's like, you can imagine an X, but there's no center to it. You just like erase it, so they're like little dashed lines. I like it because it kind of gives it like a sparkle. Gives it like like what I'm drawing right here. I'm looking between my sketchbook and this drawing like that. Maybe not exactly like that, but how you got those little dashed lines where they're not quite meeting in the middle. I feel like it's kind of a fun way to express like a bit of magic, like whether there's a twinkle somewhere in the piece, or you really want the sky just to sparkle, shooting stars. I really like to show like nature sort of meshing with whatever I'm making. Kind of like what I was saying earlier. I guess this ties in. I still can't think of the word. If I think of the word, I'll throw it in one of these videos. Panpsychism, I think, is what it is. Where there's a little bit of projecting your consciousness onto things, and everything's got a little bit of information stored in it. Like if I smack a rock, it's going to make a certain sound. That's some info. It's not self-aware as far as we consider self-awareness, whatever we know about that, but it's got something to it. It's got special colors to it and all that. So I try and connect animals, humans, to that nature. I like to see the interconnectedness of everything. So I won't get too lost in my sketchbook here. I'm looking back at the page. I'm doing this voiceover after the fact, after I've drawn this. That's kind of what I'm doing in this piece. There's a little bit of movement. I'm putting the clouds around the critter, making it a little mysterious. Like there's an emergence. There's also a bit of a fall between its eyes, between the leaves around it. Something to sort of like draw you down to experience the whole piece, and something at the very top to give it a bit of a hierarchy, that spirit above it all. Looking back at it, it sounds deeper than when I made it, but for you to interpret, for you to think. I'm just here to ramble about it. But yeah, really my intention with all this is just to share what I love most. It feels really good to get back to what I'm familiar with, what gets me in that flow state, and to not have those pressures on it. I think what's important as a creative individual is just to find stability. It's like Maslow's hierarchy. How are you going to get to these higher level thinking, higher level doing without getting your needs met first? And yeah, reflecting on this, I'm not totally in love with it. I like what's going on with the face, the arms, the tail I think could use some work, but we're just going to call it good there. I think I spent 30 minutes or an hour on this drawing, really trying to set aside time on like a Wednesday night to do this. I think it's good to schedule things. I do morning walks. It's built a really good routine, and I'm hoping to take that same energy I've put into my own health and fitness into this artwork, just to give you all something to chew on. I stare at this on my own. I still sketch from time to time, whether I'm recording it or not, but I want to share it. I like feedback. I like to hear your thoughts on my ramblings and what I'm drawing. This is a communal thing. At least I'd like to make it that. I'm not, of course, the sketchbook turns into a bit of a journal, but I'm not too bashful about sharing it. So I'm trying to find this as a good method of doing that. I like being able to talk for once, give that a shot, see what you think. But yeah, if there's any improvements that you can think of, let me know. I don't imagine we'll have a big audience with one video, but yeah, check it out. Zooming in here, as I described, we got that spirit floating above with that emotional draw in the eyes. It's nice to get a little bit of a close-up. Hoping in the coming videos I'm going to have a little bit of a better setup. I got kind of like a janky mic stand arm coming off. That's going to hopefully give you more of an overhead. Kind of like this, just less movement. This last video I just had like a tripod set up over my shoulder. But yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, whatever you plan to do. I'm going to call it here. So all good things, take it easy. Bye-bye.